So Steph and Gian, thanks so much for coming in today. Can you please tell me first up, what is Japandi?
Thank you for having us. Japandi is a blend of Japanese and Scandinavian architectural designs. So Japandi, think wabi-sabi philosophy, the beauty of imperfection, and think Scandinavian hygge, which is prioritizing coziness and harmony.
And in our view, this style really does fit really nicely within Australia. Think outdoor, tranquil, nice landscapes, but also sophisticated design, making sure that you're creating nice, cozy areas for living, bathing, and just having life's most meaningful moments.
So can you explain what the feeling of living in a Japandi home feels like?
So think about sun-drenched spaces, open plan living, natural materials.
Being in a Japandi home, you just get this feel of warmth, and that's not through just the way that things are designed, but it's in the way that textures are used and natural materials. One of the big things about Japanese design is craftsmanship and also beauty, but beauty in imperfection. So that's, using textures like your concretes and your timbers. But I guess having a journey as you go through the home.
In Japanese and Scandinavian culture, nature and bringing nature into the space is really important. So through courtyards, through large-scale windows, low sills, these sort of architectural ideas we can add in and actually define what is a Japandi home.
Yeah, that's a good description. I feel from my perspective, when I went to Japan, I saw everything was picture frame.
Mm-hmm.
They love picture framing little windows and making moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
More so than I feel like most of the Australian homes just got these big open windows. We've not really too many moments, just generic. But I feel
Framing spaces.
I feel like it's really thought out architecture.
For sure, yeah, intentional design, even in the hallways as well. So you have pods, breakout spaces, so interchangeable spaces that you're not only using it for a living space, it could be a study.
Japanese are pretty good at space saving.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
Like, there's a study nook in every little corner.
Yeah, well, we travelled to both Scandinavia and Japan last year, and we were blown away with how smartly they design. They'll have homes that are half the size of your standard Sydney house, and they've just packed so much meaningful design in there. And they use nature really well as well.
And that's so relevant in Australia because we're not actually having these really big houses where we've got small terraces. How do we get the maximum amount of impact in a small space? And that's just through smart design.
Yeah.
But implementing these architectonics like light wells that actually make the space feel better than what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's that illusion. And architecture can change, public perception. It can change the way you feel in a space, and that's why it's so moving.
Yeah. And I think back to what you said, having value for money, you kind of, square meters cost money building.
Yeah.
And if you can make a really efficient house, you don't need the extra space. And I feel like with this design you can.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what are the hallmarks of a Japandi home?
So interchangeable spaces are a key hallmark of Japandi design. We think about, blocking off spaces for different multiple uses, but also courtyards. And courtyards are important, but it's about managing light. And how do we do that? Through eaves, through screening, and also framing with purpose. So not having overglazed spaces. We have to raise the sills and create frames to nature. So all of these sort of principles add up to what a Japandi hallmark would look like.
Yeah, and I think I just picture a little reading nook frame, someone sitting there reading a book, the courtyard.
Yeah.
That's what I was picturing as you were saying that. Yeah. Let's run through the lifestyle themes for the James Hardie 2025 Modern Forecast. So we've spoken about how the Japandi house is so space saving and efficient, and that culture is great at that. Can you tell me more about interchangeable living and flexibility? Because we know homes aren't always designed for where the family is now. It's sort of where they'll be in the future. So give us some examples of some Japandi interchangeable living.
So whether it's a home office, a gym, even a living room, I think we saw a lot of people starting to take a lot more pride in their homes and really treating their homes as sanctuaries. That does involve smart design and allowing the home to be interchangeable. So, the odd days that you're working from home, you're not having to slouch up on your couch. You're able to use a space that could otherwise be a media room. So I think having those sophisticated design choices early on can really cater for that.
Yeah, and breaking down the spaces as well. So being able to, close down a space, if kids are in that room.
All right, so we love the look of Japandi homes, but we're in an Australian climate which is extremely harsh. We've got really cold, really hot. Can you tell me how resilient a Japandi home is and how you kind of do design tips to get a resilient home?
There are a number of ways that the Japandi design influences a resilient home that is, again, like you said, there to test the time of extreme weather like in Australia. I think one of them, and we've spoken to it before, is, I guess, the placement of windows and doors through big sliders, promoting cross-flow ventilation for those really hot environments. That really does look at the energy saving areas as well.
Yeah, and having good cross-flow is really important, but also having insulation and natural materials that actually promote thermal mass. So having stone walls, if walls aren't insulated, what you'll do is you'll have like this massive stone wall, and stone is a natural material, so the thermal properties of that is able to retain the heat, store it during the day, and then at night it slowly releases, and then you open up cross-flow areas and you're able to funnel that hot air out for summer or retain that air in for winter.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. With durability in mind, what sort of cladding products and things do you guys use on your designs to make, I guess, the house perform really well, but also handle the harsh climate that's going to be belting the house, things that don't warp, twist, bend, things like that?
I mean, having overhanging eaves, I think definitely can lend to wherever the sun is, whether it's winter or summer, and also, of course, screens. We're wanting the screens to be shutting down the sun when we don't want it. But also from an aesthetic perspective, if we speak about cladding, Scandinavian design as well, specifically, is more minimalistic, clean lines, really, intentional placement of windows. Yeah. And that's why I love the accent trim so much. Where I put the windows is actually aligned with where the trims are, so that I'm actually further emphasizing and elongating architectural tectonics, but in a very simple way. So I'm not over ornamenting the space, but that's how cladding actually has a really beautiful connection with architecture.
And you'll obviously get a lot less waste if you're designing a house to suit all those cladding joins and working full boards. Not only does it look really minimalist, you're getting less waste, it's more efficient to build, and using products like fibre cement by James Hardie, you're obviously ticking all the boxes for the fire rating, the acoustic rating, and obviously thermal rating when you're using things like insulation and things like that. So can you give us some money-saving efficiencies when designing a Japandi home?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, one thing that is paramount in Japandi design is less is more, and we like to try and take that into consideration when we are designing our Japandi homes as well. I guess one of the biggest ones is not looking to over-capitalise, but also spending in the right areas. I think one thing that a lot of people are hesitant to do is change facades drastically, particularly if they feel like they are pigeonholed into using an existing brick facade. And what we've seen on some of our projects is the way that you're able to actually apply James Hardie cladding onto the existing brick facades, which can completely transform the street appeal of a home.
So being clever with space and being clever with where you put your money in terms of adding value and renovating. So should we be extending the house out? Is that the most cost-effective way? Or should we add a room in an attic space and simply add a dormer set? So you're able to use the footprint and what's already there. Yeah. Things like using a larger cutting board to minimize waste.
Another area you can minimise waste is actually by standardising window sizes throughout the home as well. And in taking a less is more approach, you can also adapt that to the way in which you use your trade. So let's say, for example, a double brick home across Australia. A lot of people may think I need to demolish the whole thing and start again. However, you can actually use the James Hardie products on top of brick, and that can really transform the street presence of a home.
Yeah, and I feel like doing that also helps a lot when you're doing an extension or renovation, top floor addition, because it's always a tricky process to tie into the existing, especially if it's an ugly red brick house. Trying to tie in is always a problem, as you would know. But there's so much money in all of those underground services, the concrete slab. I just think a lot of people just go for the easy option and demolish and throw everything out when they could have kept half the house and just gone on top of it, gone out from it. It's a big It's a kind of a big area that I feel people are overlooking. So that's a great point for saving money.
I think even beyond that, whenever we are looking at a home, the first thing that we are doing is looking at the floor plan and where the services are. So looking at where your wet zones are, understanding, does it really need to move? Because it's, I guess, beyond just the brick facade like we were talking about, actually understanding what the future floor plan is going to look like is really going to impact what trades you need on board as well.
Yeah, but you can design knowing what your existing floor plan is like and actually use that constraint as, you know, a design, you know, starting point. You know, if the wet areas are in one area, then keep them there. And how can we, you know, add, you know, another room onto that and, you know, create interchangeable spaces and actually having like 2 sliding doors, servicing 2 bedrooms, so a bathroom that services both, like just different sort of ways of thinking.
Yeah, stacking them on top of each other, keeping the load,
Yes,
load points, like that's a key one for keeping existing structures, especially double brick structures. You can just chase those load points up with your top floor addition, put your bathrooms over the top, and I feel like there's so much opportunity to save money that a lot of people overlook. So let's talk about cladding. I can see you've used the James Hardie cladding, and how did you use it on your Japandi house?
I love using the James Hardie board because we can use the same product but different profiles and create this really harmonious house because it's the same fibre cement cladding, but we're using it in different ways. So we have fine textured cladding with the accent trim, and that we create that board and batten feel. So we're accentuating those lines. We're putting window placements in between the accent trim and really emphasizing beautiful spaces. We use the accent cladding to elongate more complicated facades, so we're just wanting those long vertical lines to run all the way through. And when we're wanting something that's a little bit more detailed, then we go back to the board and batten. And that's how we, you know, use both of them, and it's been so successful in this facade.
And it looks like you can pretty much go the same colour, but
Yes.
you're just doing textural changes, which doesn't go out of fashion.
No, for sure.
Colours seem to go out of fashion
Yeah.
a lot, so that's great use of product.
I think there's been obviously a big push towards darker homes as well, like the darker palettes, and the fact that the James Hardie product comes pre-primed, ready to paint. I mean, that's a huge saving as well.
Yeah, well, definitely for us builders, throwing it up.
Yeah.
You've got a product that's literally ready, screw it on the wall, painter comes in, paints it, you drop the scaffold the next day. People underestimate time in construction. They think of cost of materials and this and that, but they forget every day of a construction costs a lot of money. The site fence, the scaffold, the everything on the site, the guys in the office, the site manager, and if you calculate them all, there's normally about $2,000 a day. If you've got a product that's pre-primed, ready to paint, and it's extremely fast to install, it makes a lot of saving in the overall cost of the job.
Absolutely.
So lastly, tell me about the Japandi Design Handbook and what people can get out of it.
It's a great tool that allows anyone considering building a Japandi home really get stuck into it. It includes things like design tips, colours and materialities. We even provide building efficiency and cost-saving tips to help them create their own Japandi home.
And there's also a floor plan on there that we've designed that if you follow, you can create your own Japandi home. Through courtyards and different architectonics, if you follow, you'll create an amazing space.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think from a pre-construction perspective, that is so important for people to actually understand the design, because every design costs a lot different to each other. And I think if you're on a budget and you really like a certain style, you really need to invest some time into looking into the handbook. Thanks so much for talking all things Japandi homes. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the viewers would have as well. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.